The term minicamp is an odd one to me because if you've ever seen Caleb Jones, I'm not sure he's ever attended anything mini in his life. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Lombardi Time Brews, where I'm your host, John Del Rey. Today we're talking minicamp. Yes, mandatory minicamp finally, kind of, sort of ish, coming to a close today. They had their second of their 2 overall practices tomorrow. Yes, it is still mandatory minicamp time for the Packers, but they're doing a team outing instead, as has been the case through most of the Matt LaFleur era. So today is really the last day that we really get to glean any type of information from practice or even from a coach press conference himself. So today I'm going to be looking at different storylines, different topics, different players that have stood out all throughout these last couple of days from minicamp. Do me a favor before we dive in, though. Hit like, share, subscribe on this video, all the usual stuff, especially if you're new here, but just to continue to help the channel grow if you like what you hear today. So the first topic that I'm actually going to talk about is Matt LaFleur and his press conferences of the last 2 days. The most notable thing of today has been kind of 2 little sound bites that have been going around a lot. One being that he said that he believes that the team is in better shape at this point compared to other years. And the back end of that is, he said, in terms of conditioning. Now, I did see some headlines, some people who like to take that tweet and just say, well, he said we're in the best shape. And I think that they were alluding to, he meant roster-wise. No, he actually said it in the back half of that sentence, too, in terms of conditioning, which I think naturally is going to be part of the plan when you've got a whole bunch of 24-year-olds running around instead of worrying about 32-year-olds, or as I know in the case of myself, being in your mid-30s and things not working anymore. So I think it's just naturally the team is also younger. They're going to appear significantly more conditioned than an older team would. The other notable thing from the press conference, the one that's making some headlines, is he was asked very directly about, Mark Murphy himself even mentioned that perhaps we're going to get to more of a Matt LaFleurian offense. And Matt just kind of brushed that aside, saying he doesn't even know what it means. He got a decent chuckle out of the question. But here's the thing, and my interpretation of this is Matt LaFleur knows exactly what that means. Because, and then he went on to say too, I should include this, that Matt LaFleur did say that anything that we've run here has been our offense. It's been a collaborative effort. Yeah, I totally believe that, right? You're not the captain of a ship, and then, even if your other, your subservients, let's say, have significant say in how the ship functions, it's still your collective ship, right? Well, ultimately, I think what this really means is, and I've been talking about this a lot, is I'm not necessarily a believer that Aaron Rodgers was walking up to the line just doing whatever he wanted. What I think is that there were a lot of compromises made behind the scenes, a lot of planning where Matt LaFleur maybe wanted to do something that fits more in the Shanahan, or more specifically the McVay style of offense, and Rodgers wasn't necessarily comfortable with it, so they didn't include it. Well, Matt, you know exactly what that means. It means that there's no longer some person on the other side of the room going, yeah, no, we're not going to do that. I'm not comfortable. Now you get to do all the McVay, all the Shanahan, all of the LaFleur stuff. And really, what does that look like? It looks like a lot more motion, a lot more illusion of complexity, as Matt LaFleur has said before, that he likes to walk up with the same base look, the same scheme look, or the same formation, and then run a bajillion different things out of it. He talked about that extensively when he was first hired, and we saw it much more in the first 2 years than we have in the last 2. So what I really think that this means, and he can chuckle about it all he wants, but at the end of the day, what this truly means, to me at least, is a return to the illusion of complexity, the moving pieces around, motion, things that quarterback 1 in the middle of the point last year said that these are too complicated, we shouldn't do them anymore, because Rodgers had a habit of just saying what he wanted about game plans. So I don't know. The idea that LaFleur didn't know what was being talked about there, sure, he's sidestepping it not to create a thing. I get it. But I don't think that many people are that naive to know that LaFleur knows exactly what that's in reference to. One last tidbit that I'll give is he did give a shout out to a number of different players, both for their leadership, their quality of humanity, the work that they've done on the field. Right now, we'll just talk about the leadership role. He was asked about Rashawn Gary, and are you excited to get Rashawn Gary back? Do you find yourself peeking over there to see if you can encourage him to get back sooner? And he said, yeah, absolutely. Rashawn is a stand-up guy, a perfect example of what we want our players to be. He also mentioned Aaron Jones being the epitome of a leader for this young team. Previously, he shouted out Christian Watson for even in only his second year becoming the leader of the wide receiver room. Today, he mentioned Carl Brooks and Kobe Wooden, the two rookie interior defensive linemen, explaining that they are both great humans who are learning the game quickly. When asked what's going on during these 40 days, specifically in regards to Jordan Love, are you going to be having conversations with these guys? Is there any extra planning going on? And LaFleur basically said, and he kind of punted on the Jordan thing, just expressed it for everybody. He said they want everybody to continue working out. Don't just leave and forget about football. Continue working out. Get your head in the playbook. Continue studying. Make sure that the mental aspects of the game are right. And Andrew Brand himself, the Packers' former VP of Finance, has said that there are two stretches in the year where you really, as an executive, worry about getting those middle-of-the-night phone calls. One is over this 40-day stretch, the other being the bye week. And of course, what I'm referencing would be a 3 a.m. phone call saying your player's been arrested, your player's been in a car accident, something bad has occurred. So what LaFleur's saying is, you carry the G with you at all times, whether you're in Green Bay or whether you're not. You are a Green Bay Packer. And so what that means is keep your head on right, don't forget about football, keep working out, and keep your head in the playbook, and we can hit the ground running when things really start. Speaking of which, he did slip a little, much to the dismay of VP of Communications Jason Wallers, but it looks like the shareholder meeting will be on July 24th, players report July 25th, and on July 26th is going to be the first training camp practice of the year. Yes, generally that first practice is open to everybody, which means I will most certainly be there. Hopefully going to meet a number of other people there as well. All right, point 2 of the headlines of Minicamp would be some standout undrafted free agents. And if you've been following along with all of the tweets, all of the news from Minicamp, you're going to know exactly who I'm talking about. And the two UDFAs that deserve some shout outs would be Brenton Cox Jr. from Florida and Malik Heath, the wide receiver. And these two have been talked about a lot. Malik Heath specifically making one awesome catch a day, one eye-catching catch a day, let's say. And Brenton Cox utilizing his tremendous athleticism, utilizing his pass rush moves that were so talked about in college, but then, of course, he fell to being undrafted because of getting kicked off of 2 programs and a whole bunch of stuff we've talked about before. So I wanted to just take a super quick look because I see a lot of people getting really excited about this, especially Cox. And a lot of people questioning, well, I think he's going to make the roster. Okay, so then the first question that has to be asked if Cox, as a UDFA, is going to make the roster, who isn't going to make the roster? Let's take a look at the edge room super quick. You've got Rashawn Gary, who right now looks like he's on track to come back in the early portion of the season, so PUP may not be what they want to do with him. So you've got Rashawn Gary. Starting opposite Rashawn would be Preston Smith. Then you've got last year's 5th-round pick who made quite the impression, Kingsley Enagbare. You've got last year's free agent signing who was re-signed again this year, Justin Hollins. Plus you've got your first-round draft pick in Luke Van Ness. So are they really going to keep a 6th edge rusher to keep the UDFA Cox? It's possible, but that's really beginning to get excessive even for as talented as the Packers are at the position. So of that collective, the one most likely not to make it would probably be your veteran re-signee, Justin Hollins, who did some really nice things last year and has been utilized in a number of different ways thus far between OTAs and minicamp, generally even starting or getting the first reps opposite Preston Smith at times. So I'm hard-pressed to believe that he's necessarily on the chopping block, but I don't know. Might Cox make it? Sure. Yeah, it's way too early to make any call like that. And you're certainly excited by his potential, some of the potential that he flashed in college and what led to him being one of the more exciting UDFA signings in all of football. But who's going to go if he's going to make it? And of course, the option does exist that Rashawn Gary goes on the PUP, in which case then we don't have to worry about this till like week 6 of the season. So, just wanted to bring that up there. If you're getting all excited about a UDFA, who's going to go to make sure that UDFA makes the roster? And then, of course, Malik Heath as well. Now, Heath is super interesting because, I'm going to get to this again later too, I don't necessarily feel that like ones, twos, threes in minicamps and OTAs is like that vital, because these things can change at the drop of a hat. But look, Malik Heath spent a lot of time with what are going to be starters in the wide receiver rotations. And from what I've seen, at every single OTA or minicamp practice, he's made at least one catch that's at least caught a lot of eyeballs. So, might he stand a chance? Maybe. But again, you're looking at wide receiver 6, maybe wide receiver 7, in which case then you're talking about guys like Grant Dubose not making it, a 7th round pick this year, or Bo Melton not making it in spite of what is believed to be great special teams potential. So just things to consider. Now, if they continue on this trajectory, or even in the like 40 days that we have off between now and training camp, I may do some deeper dives into these UDFAs, just because they seem to be the ones that are standing out the most. So if I do that, be on the lookout for those videos if you're curious. Topic number 3 that I want to talk about, Jaire Alexander. My goodness, what a curious cat Jaire Alexander is. He passed up his $700,000 workout bonus. Yeah, $700,000. Jaire Alexander just said, nah, I'm good. And I know he makes like $24 million a year, so like it's not a lot for him. It's still $700,000, and he elected not to make that money because he didn't go to enough of the voluntary OTAs. In his case, he didn't go to any. But he has been at the mandatory minicamps the last 2 days. And he was asked about that in the locker room yesterday when he was asked, why is it that you chose not to get $700,000? Why is it that you chose not to come to OTAs? And he told a very, very interesting story like only Jaire Alexander can. And he basically explained, hey, I stayed in Green Bay. Season ended. I stayed here. Stayed here all the way through late April, actually. And then OTAs are starting, and I got out of town. And now I'm back, and I'm probably going to be back all the way through training camp. He did a reverse of what you're supposed to do in the offseason, right? Season ends, most dudes get the heck out. Then they come in for OTAs and minicamp, and then they get the heck out. And then they just come back for training camp. Jaire said, yeah, no, I'm going to get out for OTAs. I don't like them. And then when he was asked, like, why? Why would you do this to yourself? Why would you not make $700,000 by just staying in a place that you've been? He said, he really likes being around Lambeau when it's empty. Cool. one of the just coolest cats, oddest ducks, whatever you want to say. That is Jaire Alexander, and he certainly still has been putting in the work all offseason, still has been around the coaches, the trainers, etc. as much as he can. So you're not really going to fault him for missing much, but like, just curious. When asked how much it would take to actually get him to come to an OTA, he said $10 million. So I'm sure Brian Gutekunst and Russ Ball took note for the next contract. Other curious things about Jaire Alexander, he did practice yesterday. In fact, yesterday didn't exactly look like his best day of practice. He got burned. Jordan Love apparently threw a bullet on the left sideline to Christian Watson. Would have gone for a 96-yard touchdown because I guess Jaire was nowhere close to Watson. And after practice, Jaire did make note about how exciting it is to have these young receivers and how he wants what's best for the team at this point, not necessarily himself. So he gets excited when he sees a guy like Romeo Doubs streaking for a touchdown, or he gets excited and happy for a guy like Christian Watson when he beats him. But he also wasn't going to allow that to occur again today in practice number 2. Because today he wound up with the interception that ended Jordan Love's single 2-minute drill and apparently was all over the place, including numerous past breakups. One interesting financial tidbit about Jaire Alexander too, in this whole like skipping OTAs thing, he did not get his $700,000 workout bonus. The Packers do not just get that cap room right now. Instead, it becomes a credit on the 2024 cap. So a little bit extra room next year because of Jaire's reverse vacations. Super quick update on Jordan Love, because I know a lot of people are interested in this. I'm just going to read this pretty verbatim. I included stats here from Bill Huber of Sports Illustrated, since he was actually there and counting all of Love's throws. Basically, throughout the 5 practices that the media has been invited into over the span of like 7-on-7 or 2-minute drills or just team periods, Love went a cumulative 50 of 84, which is a 59% completion rate with 3 interceptions. Huber did not make note of touchdowns as well. Here's what I would say on that. From what I've read, yes, Love has made a number of, let's call them learning throws, the throws that you're not supposed to do. And he's admitted as much, too. Anytime that he's talked in the locker room or anywhere else, he said, yeah, no, I shouldn't have thrown that one. I know that now. And that's what this time of year is for a young quarterback, right? Make those throws. And Rodgers used to talk about this a lot, too. Deliberately try throws that you don't know if you can make to see if you can make them, because then you know what to do versus what not to do in a game. Maybe Love had a little bit of that going on. But ultimately, I would say that from what I've been reading, Love has struggled at times, while certainly making a number of throws that has made people stop and go, oh, he for real, for real. Even Jason Wilde, who a lot of people have critiqued Wilde this entire offseason for being a little too pro-Rodgers, a little too anti-Love, and Wilde's gotten awfully defensive about that at times, saying it's not that he has anything against Love, it's just he personally doesn't want to wish away a 4-time MVP quarterback, which has a certain degree of, understandability to it. But even he remarked on Twitter yesterday one throw that Jordan Love made that made him go stop and go, wow. Just keep that in mind. Another quick update about a singular player, Anders Carlson, by all accounts, going to be the Packer kicker this year. Between the 2 days of practices, both yesterday and today, he went a cumulative 11 of 12 on field goal attempts. 6 of those were indoor, 6 of those were outdoor. His long was a 54-yarder, and his singular miss was a 42-yarder that appeared to actually have a low snap from what I found. Certainly encouraging. And again, I will say again, if you are looking for why the Packers may have chosen Anders Carlson from Auburn, coming off of 2 lackluster statistical years with injuries, look at 2020. If you're looking for reasons why the Packers might have chosen this kicker, go back, look at 2020. It was by far his strongest collegiate year and shows the big leg that even Matt LaFleur has talked about in press conferences. Now, let's talk about just 2 more updates before we wrap up today. Position switches, 1 versus 2 rotations, etc., etc. I've said before, and I said earlier in this video, whether a guy is playing with the 1s, the 2s, the 3s, it may be noteworthy, but I don't think it's super important right now, because that kind of thing can change so quickly pre-training camp. Once you get into camp, it matters more, but now it's just about getting guys in different formations, seeing what different people can do together. So I don't put a lot of stock in that, but what I do put stock in is where guys are playing. Tariq Carpenter's switch from safety to inside linebacker is now officially official, including on the Packers website. And Matt LaFleur remarked that his tremendous athleticism is what's leading them to believe that he can do the switch capably. Or Zach Tom, just to update you on one more player, has been getting a lot of plays with the first team line at right tackle, but then when it comes to second team line, he goes over and plays center. So they were not kidding when they said Zach Tom is going to get play across the line, and he's going to be in competition from the entire right side of the line, center, right guard, and right tackle. Looks like that may actually be coming into fruition per Tom's reps to this point. Last thing I'm going to touch on is attendance at Packers' mandatory minicamp. It's mandatory. Why would anybody be missing? Well, LaFleur kicked off his press conference yesterday by saying that there are a few players who would be missing due to personal reasons. Now, what that means, nobody knows, but the players are entitled to their privacy. LaFleur obviously knows what's going on. These are 2 guys that were excused from attendance, and that would be Tarvarius Moore, who is really flashing at OTAs, and then Matt Orzik, the favorite for long snapper. Out with injuries were Dallin Levitt, Eric Stokes, Rashawn Gary, Jake Hansen, Tyler Davis, Grant Dubose, and Chris Slayton. One curious case would be that of edge rusher Jonathan Garvin. He missed all of the voluntary OTAs and then wasn't at practice yesterday. Could have been one of the personal things that LaFleur was talking about. Could have been injury related, even though no one's mentioned as much. Just a curious case to keep an eye on. I don't think Garvin has a very high chance of making the roster this year. Maybe that has something to do with it. But regardless, just a player that maybe is worth keeping an eye on for some potential drama down the road. So that would be it for today. I've caught you all up on the last 2 days of minicamps, the news, the headlines, the tidbits. I know I didn't dive so much into like what plays occurred because, I wasn't there, but a lot of just going over the news, the things that are noteworthy from minicamp that are going to help inform our perceptions once it gets to training camp. Now, I will still be putting out regular content over this 40-day span where the Packers have nothing going on. Probably take a week or maybe 2 off here or there just to recharge the batteries, work on different configurations, things such as that nature. But thank you so much for joining me here all off season long here at Lombardi Time Brews. When we do get to training camp, yeah, that's right, I'm going to be there with the exception of 1 week where I'm with family, but I will be there at every single practice that I can be, and then doing shows probably right after training camp, because I don't think they're going to let me do them at training camp. But you go have yourselves a wonderful day. I'll be back on Friday. And as always, go Pack Go.